Today we'll be going through the second half of year number 8 here in the Miami Marlins franchise. Last episode we covered not just the first half of this season, but also the previous offseason. As you can tell, we are really moving, and our team got off to a great start. We're 55-29. I feel like oftentimes we don't start the year off that well. In Season 7, we were only 5 games over 500 going into the All-Star break. We ended up with the number 1 seed, and obviously we lost in the first round, so maybe that's a bad example. But the team's playing really well. We had the second best record in all of baseball, only trailing the Minnesota Twins, who of course we beat in the World Series 2 years ago. We lead the division pretty comfortably, and hopefully that'll stay that way, with the Mets being our biggest threat. Atlanta's kind of good, and the Phillies have been a major disappointment. I think the big storyline this year has been the old guard, who all of a sudden kind of has turned into their primes. Brian De La Cruz and Jesus Sanchez have never looked better. The two of them have been awesome. Edward Cabrera is continuing to produce. Our team has gotten a handful of injuries. Obviously, Jazz Chisholm missed the first month of the year with an Achilles injury. He recently suffered another injury, hurting his hamstring. Isaac Stu as well is currently hurt and will likely be out through the All-Star break. That's two of our most important offensive players, and it hasn't mattered, considering we are still 26 games over 500. Isaac Stu's played like an MVP again. Woody Landry's amongst the home run leaders. Jazz Chisholm is back after the Achilles injury, but it's De La Cruz and Sanchez who I think we need to give all the love to. De La Cruz missed the first month of the year last year, and ever since then he's been legitimately one of the best players in baseball out of nowhere. Jesus Sanchez as well has been awesome this year. He's been a really good player for a while, but never this good. Already his second highest career WAR, and we have half of the season to go. And then we talked about Edward Cabrera as well in the last episode because he is regressing a lot, and I think this game is very unfair with regression because he's 31 years old. He's still at the top of his game. I get that he's pitched a lot, but he should not be regressing. I feel like the game punished him for being too good too soon. This game doesn't like when players peak in their 20s. So I asked you guys, would it be fair to give him some of his rating points back? And it seems like everybody agreed. So we're going to make him a 99. Once he's like 34, 35 years old and we're into the long-term sim, I'm not going to edit his ratings anymore. But until he starts to go down in play, I think it's most fair that we don't let MLB The Show completely screw him. It's also that we're at the end of the series, and I want to have fun, and I want to see these players become Hall of Famers, and I don't want MLB The Show to completely screw us out of that. So let's simulate up to the All-Star break. We've got 2 road series against the Red Sox and Nationals. Hopefully we can add some more wins as the Twins make a really interesting trade, sending away their starting catcher Chase Gentry to the Padres for not even prospects. Those 3 guys are older than Gentry. They're all pushing 30. The Twins are the best team in baseball. I don't know why they're doing that. Anyway, Geronimo Gonzalez just got hurt. He entered the rotation in the last episode, and he has been really good. He would have been an all-star, but now he probably won't because he's going to miss his last start, which is kind of unfortunate. That'll bring us into the MLB draft, and again, I had scouting on auto. All the guys I wanted, Sean Britton, Jed Summers, they were picked before us. Summers was picked right before us. So in the first round, we drafted Angel Ortiz, a third baseman. Then we drafted Sean Thorman, a pitcher. With our competitive balance pick, we selected shortstop Stuart Lawson. And then most of the other guys we didn't really have scouted, so I drafted Sylvester Saposito, Israel Langtigua, Christopher Roberts, and Doug Nolot in the final round. We're also going to be bringing up Tobias Starr to the big league team with the injury to Geronimo Gonzalez. Starr has pitched well in limited opportunity. As we get swept by Boston, our pitching got rocked. And then we sweep Washington, so I guess it's fine. That'll bring us into the All-Star festivities. We won't participate in the Home Run Derby because we got a lot to go through today, but it is worth noting that Woody Landry is in the Home Run Derby. He has hit, what would it be, 56 home runs since the start of June last year? That's a lot. The Home Run Derby is in Tampa Bay. I still get flashbacks to the Season 5 World Series here. Woody's going to go up against 6th seed Ian Happ in the first round, and ultimately Happ ended up beating him. So Woody Landry gets first rounded. Woody was pretty solid with 17 homers, but Ian Happ outdid him. Happ beats O'Neal Cruz to make the championship and lose to Yordan Alvarez of the Houston Astros, who, of course, Woody Landry beat out for the batting title at the end of last year. So Alvarez wins the Derby. That'll bring us into the All-Star game itself. We are going to have a number of All-Stars. Edward Cabrera, of course. No Geronimo Gonzalez. He could have made it had he not gotten injured, which sucks. A number of our former relievers are here, including Adonis Takadopoulos, who's on the Dodgers now. Ever since we traded Takadopoulos, he's been unbelievably good. So that's cool. I'm happy for him. Emmanuel Clase makes it, finally playing up to his contract. I feel like he was a little disappointing early in his Marlins tenure, but he is playing better. And then in terms of position players, Woody Landry, of course, makes another All-Star team. This is at least 4, maybe 5 for him at this point. He's made quite a bit. Alec Bohm makes it, another former Marlin who's revitalized his career. And then in the outfield, the old guard getting represented. Brian De La Cruz makes his first All-Star team since Season 2. And Jesus Sanchez makes his first All-Star team ever. These guys have never been consistent All-Stars. One combined All-Star appearance between these two, yet they're both playing like MVP candidates basically into their mid-30s. De La Cruz is 33. Sanchez is 32. I'm still amazed by how well these guys have played. And then here's the American League team. Sandy Alcantara makes his first All-Star game as a Yankee. He as well did not really live up to his contract early on, but he is starting to play a lot better in New York. They're still paying him a lot of money, though. And I think in hindsight, even though I wanted to bring him back, it was probably for the best that he ended up leaving. And then here's the rest of the AL team. Let's now do some simulating. I think the game I want to play here is pretty obvious. It's Minnesota. They're the best team in baseball. A World Series rematch from a couple years ago on the road in Minnesota. During our simulation, the Cubs trade Isaac Paredes to the Padres for Ranger Suarez, adding some pitching. Vidal Brujan, broken foot, not ideal. He'll be out for a month or two. That's not good. He's been solid for us this year, hitting 271 OPS, close to 800, WAR at 2. He's been highly productive, and ultimately I would call up Ronald Andino to replace him. We ended up going 5-2 in the games we simulated, beating the Rockies and the Cubs in those respective series. I did some simulating early in the Minnesota series, and you may have noticed Peter Gillis broke his leg. He's one of the backups for Vidal Brujan. He plays a lot against lefties. He's been really solid this year, hitting like 330, so that sucks. Esteury Ruiz will now take his place on the big league roster. So let's hop into this second game of a 3-game series against Minnesota. I really wanted to make it a point to pitch with Geronimo Gonzalez because I have not done that yet, so I'm really excited to see what he's all about here. Gonzalez was basically a throw-in in the Yuri Perez MJ Melendez trade a few years ago, and I was excited about adding him, but I did not know he was going to be this good this quickly. And now he heads out to Minnesota against one of, if not the best teams in baseball in a World Series rematch from a couple of years ago. Both teams the number 1 seeds last year and ended up both disappointing in the playoffs. Simeon Woods Richardson on the bump today for Minnesota as he strikes out Jazz Chisholm. I'll be honest, the shrubs being bright in center field made it kind of hard to hit the ball for the first couple of innings. Here's a look at Geronimo Gonzalez. 2.93 ERA and 11 starts. Began the year as a reliever, transitioned over to as a starter, and could have made the All-Star team if not for an injury. Here's Cesar Guevara up the middle with a base hit. The leadoff man here in Minnesota, acquired last year from the Red Sox for Kenny Felsch, who's one of the best hitters in baseball. That trade still doesn't really make sense for Minnesota, especially with Guevara getting gunned down at second by MJ Melendez. Alex Verdugo still up for the Twins, having a great year, hitting .318, but he goes down on the fastball, and Gonzalez gets through the first as we move into the second. Jesus Sanchez having a phenomenal season, thinks he drew a walk. That pitch was very clearly in the strike zone. I don't know why he had to put on the theatrics. Bottom 2, Alex Kirilloff rips it into right. That one's gone, and the Twins are on the board first. They lead at 1-0 with a solo homer by Alex Kirilloff, his 23rd of the year. So it's Minnesota on the board first, but the Marlins will clap back. MJ Melendez goes deep into right center, and we're tied at 1. Twins fans, shield yourself. You're getting flashbacks. Melendez dominated in the World Series against the Twins 2 years ago, winning the World Series MVP. That is his 10th of the year. Just like old times, going deep here in Minnesota yet again. And the Marlins knot this one up. That'll bring up Kevin Alcantara batting in the leadoff spot today. And he rips this one into the gap. That one could go for extras, and it looks like it will. as he will make it into second with a double. Alcantara hasn't quite had the season he was hoping for, with De La Cruz and Sanchez playing like MVPs and James Wood really playing well. He's basically been the fourth outfielder. Woody Landry goes down looking on the fastball, and so Woods Richardson gets through the third, but he does allow a homer here to Melendez as this game is tied. Let's move into the fourth inning now. Brian De La Cruz is up. Second-time All-Star, singles into center. De La Cruz has always been a good player for us, especially in the playoffs, but he has really stepped up his game this year, and that exact phrase can be used for Jesus Sanchez. Great player, phenomenal playoff performer, but he has turned it on another level this year as that's a double into left center. De La Cruz slides safely, and the Marlins lead it 2-1 with an RBI double by Sanchez, his 25th two-bagger of the year. First and third now for Melendez, looking for another homer. He hits it high. Is it deep enough? Not quite. It's caught at the track and left. Sanchez looks to score off the sacrifice. He will. So Melendez drives in another run, and the Marlins now add to their lead. It's 3-1. Minnesota's going to make a pitching change. I feel like that's a little bit early. I get that Woods Richardson hasn't looked all that good since the start of the third, but I'm still a little bit surprised by it. And he'll be replaced by Ray Valenzuela, who's been fine this year. 4.33 ERA, but I think the numbers overall are better than his ERA suggests. After walking his first batter, he'll face off against Kevin Alcantara, who also draws a walk. And that means, oh Lord, the bases are loaded. Innings over, guys. Pack it up. Full count for Jazz Chisholm. Lines it into left, and it is caught. So the Marlins do nothing with the bases loaded in an absolutely shocking development. They do add 2 more runs, though, with an RBI double for Sanchez and a sac fly by Melendez to make it 3-1. Gonzalez is struggling early in the fourth, allowing 2 early base runners, but it won't matter. It's a double play. 3-6-1 for the Marlins infield. Brendan Rodgers grounded to short. Jazz Chisholm, what a play. Inning over. So the defense comes up big, holding Minnesota off the board as it remains 3-1, and we move into the fifth. Jesus Sanchez drove in a run and scored in the previous inning. Can he do the same here? No. Strikes out on the changeup. Good inning by Valenzuela as it remains 3-1. Bottom fifth. Runner aboard for Cesar Guevara. Up the middle with a single. Gonzalez has allowed a lot of runners over these last couple of innings. He's had overall a pretty solid game, but the Twins have gotten a number of hits and a big opportunity for Elijah Green. Rips it to third, and Jacob Berry comes down with it. A pair of 2022 first-rounders making those plays there as we move into the sixth. Still 3-1. James Wood up for the Marlins, having a career-best year, looking to keep it going. Into left field, at the track, at the wall, it's gone! Solo homer for James Wood. And the Marlins will add to their lead, his 13th of the year. I believe that ties a career high. I think he had 13 last year. It's 4-1, but not for long. Melendez with a bomb into right field, and it's 5-1. Again, Twins fans, shield yourself. He's doing the thing again. MJ Melendez with a multi-home run game, his 11th of the year. The Marlins go back-to-back, but they're not done! Khalil Watson into right center. 1's a crowd, 2's allowed, 3, well, that's just plain too many. Back-to-back-to-back home runs for the Marlins. Watson with his 3rd of the year. Finally, Valenzuela is yanked. He'll be replaced by former Marlin prospect Houston Webster, who's turned into a good player in this Twins bullpen, which, of course, by the way, features former Marlin Johan Duran, who they brought back in the offseason after trading him to us 2.5 years ago. Alcantara grounded to second. Play should be made, and it will, as Webster gets out of the inning, but the Twins allow back-to-back-to-back homers as we go bottom 6. Gonzalez staying in the game despite allowing a lot of base runners recently. Watson makes a nice play there on the ball, but it won't matter. Verdugo is in with a single. That'll bring up the catcher, William Contreras, the new full-time catcher with Chase Gentry gone, being traded to San Diego, as that's a single. 2 runners on, nobody out. Do the Marlins make a pitching change here? No. They trust their young budding star. Kirilloff up the middle, gets by Watson. Run looks to score. The throw from Wood is good, but not in time, and it's 6-2. I feel like in hindsight, the Marlins regret not taking Gonzalez out before the inning. He allows 3 straight hits and is yanked for Camilo Doval, who's coming off a rough month of June, but overall having a strong year, and he's obviously been very good over the last few years. Facing off against Brendan Rodgers, who strikes out on the sinker. That's a big out. The Marlins needed that one. Now Brooks Lee gets by Barry into left. Another run will look to score. And Sanchez throws it to the cutoff man, throw to the plate, not in time. And so it's now 6-3. Tying run is up. Both runners would advance into scoring position for Dylan Beavers with 2 away, who pops it up. Barry's under it. So the Twins leave 2 runners in scoring position, but they do score 2. And they're kind of back in the game, maybe. An eventful 6th inning. The Marlins get 3. Minnesota gets 2 back. As we move to the 7th, Nino Cabral is in for the Twins. Really good lefty arm. He did allow some big hits, though, in the World Series a couple years ago. As Woody Landry's up, lefty on lefty crime. And Woody hits it well into right center. It goes off the wall. Woody looking to make it into second safely. He slides with a double. And the Marlins offense looks to keep the momentum going from the last inning. He's in scoring position. After a walk and a couple outs later, there's 2 on and 2 away for James Wood. Single into left. Runner is held up. Pretty easy decision. He would have been out. And that means the bases are loaded. I would say inning over, but it's Twins killer MJ Melendez up. And he puts it on the ground. Not even MJ Melendez, who owns this Twins team, is able to make a play with the bases loaded. And so the Marlins leave them loaded twice so far today, but they still lead 6-3 as we go bottom 7. Doval stays in the game. He strikes out the outfielder Elijah Green on the slider. Alex Verdugo now rips it in the gap. That one should go for extras, and it will. Verdugo having a great season, hitting right around .320. Could be in contention for the American League batting title if he keeps this up. That'll bring up Contreras. Sharp grounder to third. Barry fields it cleanly at the hot corner. Throw to first is in time. And so the Marlins get through the 7th unscathed as it remains 6-3. Into the game for the Twins in the 8th is Genesis Cabrera. The lefty made an all-star team this year for Minnesota. He's been fantastic with an ERA in the mid-1s. He'll face off against the top of the order, Kevin Alcantara, who grounds it to short. And the play will not be made, and the throw is off. As you can tell, the Twins had the replacement shortstop today with Carlos Correa getting the day off. Woody Landry up the middle, base hit. 2 on now. Alcantara looks to make it to third. He's safe. And the Marlins get runners in the corners in a big at-bat here, as that's going to bring up the cleanup hitter, Brian De La Cruz, who's been fantastic all season long, and he goes down looking on the circle change. De La Cruz had an issue earlier in his career where he wasn't good with runners on base. He's hitting like .340 with guys in scoring position this year, but this time doesn't make the big play. Joe Shearer out of the bullpen for Miami here in the 8th as he allows a homer into the opposite field. That's Alex Kirilloff with his 2nd of the game, 24th of the year. It's now 6-4. Corbin Carroll looks to join the fun. That one gets by the diving glove of De La Cruz and over the fence. Had that ball not gone over the fence and kept rolling, that's at least a triple for Carroll and his 99 speed. Maybe an inside the park home run, who knows. Dylan Beavers strikes out and Shearer gets out of the inning as we move into the 9th. Felix Bautista's in for the Twins. He's no longer their closer, and I guess for good reason. He hasn't been all that good this year. Facing off against James Wood, who grounds it up the middle. Could be a double play. 4, 6, 3. The Twins turn 2, and the Marlins lead by 2 going into the 9th. Emmanuel Clase is in for the save. 3-time reliever of the year with the Guardians. I think Clase's had his best year with the Marlins. The numbers aren't really more impressive, but I think he's been more consistent. 31-34 in save ops as he strikes out Elijah Green. Verdugo now the final hope, pops it into foul territory. Woody Landry is under it, and he will make the grab. Marlins win it 6-4 here in Minnesota. The Twins unable to get revenge for the World Series, at least here in this game. They'll have another opportunity to finish out the series. Overall, pretty strong game offensively. 14 hits, 6 runs. MJ Melendez was brilliant. He continues to dominate against the Twins, going 2 for 3 with a sac fly and 2 homers. James Wood and Khalil Watson also went deep. Geronimo Gonzalez was solid, although I think we should have yanked him earlier in hindsight. He was starting to get rocked late. Kirilloff homers twice for the Twins. Their bullpen was good after we hit the back-to-back-to-back homers, but that ultimately ended up being their undoing, and we will look to sweep the Twins going towards the trade deadline. The other team we've played against in the World Series in this series, the Rays, we also play them along with the Reds, and then the Nationals leading up to the deadline, and whoa, big trade here. Ronald Acuna going to the Mariners. I don't know how to feel about this because now Acuna's out of our division. The Braves have kind of fallen out of the race. So an NL East team gets worse, but a contender gets better. The Mariners are only the third wild card, but they made the World Series last year. They were the 2 seed a season ago, and they had Ronald Acuna, who's one of the best players in the league. So it makes our division worse, but it could make a possible World Series matchup with the Mariners a lot harder. That brings us up to the trade deadline now. We had the best record in all of baseball. We've continued to build a lead in the division. And I did some searching of some potential trade targets, and there are some interesting names here on the trade block. Jonathan India in particular really tempted me. The problem is we don't really have money to work with here. And for a guy like Jonathan India, we would have to trade away $13 million worth of salaries, and we can't really do that. So because of that, I think we're going to hang tight this year at the deadline. The lineup has been really good. I feel strongly about the rotation. The bullpen's been fine, and we should be getting Stu, Brujan, and Gillis back from injury pretty soon. That brings us into August. I want to look at this series against the Mets. I think if there's any chance they have of coming back in the division, they need to perform well in both series against us. I also want to point out that we've made it to the deadline of draft pick signing, and we haven't gotten very lucky this cycle. For one thing, our first-round pick, Angel Ortiz, looks like kind of a bust. We do sign Sean Thorman, who seems like the best prospect here. Stuart Lawson, we don't sign. That's unfortunate. We would be able to sign Doug Nolott, our final pick. We did not sign Israel Lantigua, and then we did sign our first-rounder, Angel Ortiz. So we only end up with 5 rookies, and the results are interesting. Ortiz has the lowest potential of our class, as Sean Thorman looks really good, and then Doug Nolott, the guy we took a shot on with one of the last picks of the entire draft, has 92 potential. Isaac Stu, by the way, fully healthy, as we ended up doing pretty solid after the trade deadline, taking 2 of 3 against Cleveland, performed pretty well against Washington. I forgot to mention it earlier, but I'm pretty sure we got swept by the Rays, so not getting revenge for the World Series there, did we? The Mets are 9.5 games behind us. They've got to perform well in these 2 upcoming series. This one at home, the next one on the road. I simulated the first game, and we won 3-2. I wanted to play this second game because A, it gets me an excuse to pitch with Edward Cabrera, and B, I really wanted to play against Manny Franco for the Mets because he is a really good rookie. He's only pitched in 7 big league games, but he is awesome, and I'm excited to take a deeper dive into him as we make it into the bottom of the first inning. The Marlins lead the National League East by 10.5 games in the month of August. The Braves traded away Ronald Acuna. They're out of the race. The Nationals and Phillies are bad, so they're out of the race. The only team who has a chance to catch us, theoretically, would be the Mets. We play against them 6 more times in the next 2 weeks, so if the Mets want to come back, this is their opportunity to do so. Let's take a look at Edward Cabrera, who is possibly in the running for another Cy Young. He currently trails Grayson Rodriguez in St. Louis in second place for Cy Young voting as of now. But Cabrera's done that a couple times as he's won the award, where he starts a little bit slower in terms of voting, but then in the month of September, he performs really well and takes the award. He'll retire the side here in the first. Bobby Witt Jr. pumps out to short. Ronald Andino getting the start today as we go to the bottom of the first, taking a look at the rookie, Manny Franco. This guy's special. In 46 2/3 innings, he's got an ERA at 2.5, a whip below 1, only allowed 25 hits, and most impressive, only 1 homer. Make it 2! Woody Landry sends this one into right center. That one's gone, and the Marlins lead it 1-0. Woody Landry's turned into maybe the most impressive power hitter in all of baseball, his 31st of the year. Manny Franco had allowed 1 homer in 47 career Major League innings, and Woody Landry adds to the list as he goes deep. Let's go bottom 2 now. There's 2 runners on base, full count, 2 away. for Ronald Andino. Same score, 1-0. Pops it up into foul territory, caught by Alvarez, and so Franco gets out of the jam. Edward Cabrera, meanwhile, has looked like a rock star per usual. No base runners allowed so far. Yohan Moncada looking to change that, and he does, singling into left. Moncada had the big home run in Game 4 of the NLDS last year, which ultimately won the series for the Mets, who, of course, ended up winning the World Series. J.J. Bleday launches this one into right. That one's gone, and the Mets lead it 2-1. When J.J. Bleday was drafted in the top 5 in 2019, Marlins fans were excited about the idea of him hitting dingers in this park, but not with the Mets. Alexander Canario goes down in the slider. Good rebound by Cabrera. Former Marlin Alec Bohm, the All-Star, sends it into right. That goes for a hit. Cabrera looked dominant early, but he has slowed down here in the third inning, allowing some impressively hard-hit balls. Bohm looking to swipe second. He's out of there. MJ Melendez guns him down. I don't know why Bohm stalled there. He's not exactly the fastest, and MJ Melendez is a rocket. The Mets are going to keep the hits on coming, though. And had Bohm not tried to steal second, he could have possibly scored on this play, or at least had a chance to. It's a double for Brandon Marsh. That'll bring up Bobby Witt Jr., full count, and he swings and misses at the inside fastball. So Cabrera gets out of the jam, but he allows 4 hits in this inning. 2 of them score, courteous of the homer by former top Marlins draft pick J.J. Bleday. Bottom 3, up the middle, base hit for Brian De La Cruz, who has not slowed down at all since the All-Star break. If anything, he's played even better. And now he is the Marlin who's currently in the MVP race, in third behind O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds. Isaac Stu looks to score him, and he probably will here as this one goes into the gap. Going to be a close play at home. The throw from Bobby Witt Jr. is in time! They got him! Great defense there by the Mets, anchored in left by J.J. Bleday. As we move into the fourth, 2-1 Mets remains your score. Josh Naylor goes down looking on the sinker. Naylor, I never even met her. Bottom 4, James Wood up for the Marlins. And Wood sends this ball a long way into right center, into the second deck. This game's tied at 2. Manny Franco has been really good today, other than allowing the long ball, which has been his big strength this year. He only allowed 1 homer in his first career 7 starts. Well, he's allowed 2 today. And the Marlins tie it as we move into the 5th. Yohan Moncada leads the inning off with a walk. Moncada going for second as that ball gets by Andino for a hit. If not for Moncada stealing and Andino having to cover the base, that probably would have been a double play grounder. Instead, it's a base hit, and there's runners on the corners. That'll bring up Marsh, who flies into center. It's caught by Wood. The Mets had runners on the corners with nobody out, keep in mind, and Edward Cabrera retires for the next 3 batters, doesn't let either runner score. That's why this guy might be winning his 4th consecutive Cy Young this year. Should be his 5th, but I digress. Bottom 5, full count for Jazz Chisholm. He takes a walk, and the Marlins get a base runner as they look to get the lead back. That'll bring up Brian De La Cruz. Since coming back from injury in May last year, he has been, without exaggeration, one of the best players in baseball. Hits this one well into right center. It scrapes over the fence. 2-run homer for Brian De La Cruz, and the Marlins lead 4-2. De La Cruz continues his tremendous season. That's his 30th home run of the year. Only the 2nd time in his career he's cracked 30 homers. The first time was back in Season 5. He hit 33. So presumably, he is going to wipe his career high out of the water. Richie Ratto will come in to replace Manny Franco, who allowed 3 homers today, again after only allowing 1, to start his big league career. The Marlins giving him his real welcome to the majors moment as Woody Landry is up, and he will beat the shift perfectly. I do not get why teams shift against him. I feel like I'm a broken record saying that basically every episode, but Woody continues to get hits solely because of the shift. Runners in scoring position for MJ Melendez. He draws a walk. The previous batter also drew a walk. That was Sanchez. And oh God, here we go again. The bases are loaded. The inning's over. Head back to the dugout, guys. Psych! James Wood launches it high and deep into left center. That ball is gone! A grand slam for James Wood. And it's 8-2 Marlins, his 16th home run of the year and his second of the game. The James Wood ascension has been so much fun to watch. We got him in a trade with the Nationals basically as a buy low guy. Wood was a former top prospect. He was trending towards becoming a bust, and he's gotten better and better with the Marlins, revitalizing his career as the Mets make another pitching change with Blade Tidwell coming into the game. Their third pitcher of the inning after allowing their second homer of the inning and their fourth of the game. Runner on first, 2 away, Ronald Andino strikes out, but a big inning for the Marlins. They scored 6 with a 2-run homer by Brian De La Cruz and a grand slam for James Wood. Edward Cabrera is going to stay in the game. I don't really know why. He allows a home run to Bobby Witt Jr. It's now 8-3. The Marlins probably should have taken him out considering the big lead. And had it not been a 5-run game, I think we would have stuck with him because I trust him to keep things rolling. But we're up by 5. There's no reason to keep him in the game. So he'll be replaced by Adolfo Jimenez, who allows a base hit here into center off the bat of Brandon Lau. On the play, as Jazz Chisholm was diving for the ball, he hurt his hamstring, and he suffered pretty much the exact same kind of injury in the last episode, in-game, and it kept him out a week or two. Jazz Chisholm is an awesome player when he's on the field, but the injuries are starting to stockpile at age 31, particularly the hamstring. He's now had 2 separate hamstring injuries this year. Francisco Alvarez, he singles it. Runner heads for third, he's out! Guess who makes the throw in center? James Wood. He's him. 2 homers, and awesome defense. It's going to be a tough play here in center field. Have no fear. James Wood makes the over-the-shoulders grab looking like an NFL receiver as it remains 8-3. We'll move top 7. 2 away. Bohm, grounder to short. Good inning for Adolfo Jimenez. Nothing's really changing score-wise. The Marlins offense has gone silent since their big inning. As we move into the 8th, Andres Vina will come into the game for the Marlins. He was been a little bit disappointing throughout his big league career as a first-round draft pick, but give him credit. He's had a great year this year, and right as I'm gassing him up, he allows a 2-run homer here to Brandon Lau. Are the Mets back in it? I wouldn't rule them out. They're only down by 3. Lau's 15th of the year. It's now 8-5. Maybe I shouldn't have been gassing him up. That clearly was the issue. Yohan Moncada with 2 away, up the middle, base hit. What is Ronald Andino doing? So now the tying run's going to be at the plate. The plan was for Andres Vina to go the rest of the game because he's got the stamina, but he got rocked, allowing 4 hits, and he needs to come out of the game. The Marlins trust Camilo Duvall a whole lot more to get this out. Duvall's had a pretty rough summer, but the Marlins believe in him to make the play. It's going to be a tough grab and right, and Brian De La Cruz comes down with it off the bat of Blade. The Mets leave 2, but they scored 2 off the homer by Brandon Lau. Let's go to the top of the 9th. Emmanuel Clase looking for his National League leading 39th save of the year. He'll face off against Bobby Witt Jr. Runner on third, 2 away. Grounds it to third. Berry makes the play, and the Marlins win it 8-5. It wasn't always pretty, but a 6-run 5th inning ultimately gets the job done. The storyline with the Mets was that Manny Franco does not allow home runs, and he was actually really impressive for the most part, minus the long balls having allowed 3. The Mets offense was solid, 5 runs, 13 hits, homers for Lau, Blade, and Bobby Witt Jr., but that 5th inning was just too killer for them. Notable performers for us include Brian De La Cruz, 3 for 5, homer, 2 RBIs. We're getting the MVP chance ready for him. Woody Landry, 2 hits and a homer. James Wood, 3 hits, 2 homers, 5 RBIs. He's really good. Let's simulate through the rest of August, and we've got a big month upcoming. We play the Mets again. We play the Dodgers, who are in contention for the #1 seed. The Rangers are a really good team as well. Also, by the way, Jazz Chisholm's injury, it's nothing. He's totally fine. Vidal Brujan is also back healthy, as we ended up having a pretty good month. In terms of the Mets series, we dominated them, including a 16-5 win here at Citi Field. We won 2 of 3 against the Dodgers. So overall, August was a big success. We're now 17 games ahead of the Mets in the division. We comfortably lead for the #1 seed in the National League going into the final stretch of the year. And in terms of the performances offensively, there isn't really a whole lot to talk about. Some guys like Landry, Stu, Sanchez, even Jazz Chisholm have slowed down a little bit. Not Brian De La Cruz. He has moved up to 2nd for the MVP. And then James Wood had an incredible month of August as well. We'll talk about him shortly. As for the pitching, Edward Cabrera back in first place for the Cy Young. The rest of the rotation's playing well. The bullpen's playing well. Let's talk about James Wood, though, who's on the last year of his contract. He has had a career year for us this season and has gotten better and better since we acquired him from the Nationals. And truthfully, I don't think he's a player we can afford to let go. I get that we have a lot of money on the books, but Casey Mize' contract will be done. We've got a few guys on contract options, such as Clase and Melendez. We need to pay James Wood. I think he's a real focal point for this team going forward. I certainly did not think he was going to be this good. We're going to give him a 5-year, $88 million backloaded contract with a team option for the final season in case it ends up going haywire. So now we have 4 really good outfielders with De La Cruz, who's second in the MVP voting, Jesus Sanchez, who was also in the MVP voting this year, James Wood, who's been recently extended, and Kevin Alcantara, who's a great player as well. In terms of the month of September, we play nobody good. We play nobody over 500 other than the Cubs, who are in contention for the number 1 seed, so I feel like we have to play against them. I want to play this last game, use Tyrell Berry, and face off against Bobby Miller as we split the first 2 games, winning the Edward Cabrera start and losing the other one with Mize. That'll bring us into the final game. Before that, though, we have 2 guys we can call up. We're going to bring up Ziggy Zidane and Tobias Starr. Let's hop into the MLB's Game of the Week between 2 National League contenders, the Marlins and the Cubs. 2 teams of a lot of history together. We've played at least 2, maybe 3 playoff series against these guys in this series. The Cubs have been consistently a good NL Central team. Weren't all that good last year, and they decided to spend the Brinks trucks, and they are right back at the top of the division. The main guy they spent money on is this fella right here, Bobby Miller, who's been with the Pirates for a while, acquired via trade all the way back in Season 1 from the Dodgers for O'Neal Cruz, who's won 2 MVPs with the Dodgers. Safe to say that move worked out pretty well for LA, and Bobby Miller was great with the Pirates as he strikes out the side in the first, and we go to the bottom half of the inning with Tyrell Berry, and the ERA is a little bit high. I think his numbers are not really telling the full story. I think he's been better than they suggest, but he has still been the Marlins' worst starter this year. George Watkins, the catcher, hitting in the 3 spot today, grounds it to second. Vidal Brujan makes the play, and once again, retiring the side as we go to the second. Jesus Sanchez up the middle. Nice play at second by the former Marlin Luis Arraez in his 4th season in Chicago. Sanchez has been quiet since the All-Star break. Still having a great year, but not quite as good as the first half of the year, which I guess doesn't really say much considering how good he was. Runner on first now. That'll bring up Vidal Brujan, who sends this one into the left field corner. The runner's going to look to head home, and the throw is not in time. The Marlins lead 1-0. That's guess who? James Wood, who ends up scoring off of a walk. Bottom 2, Ian Happ, who beat Woody Landry in the home run derby earlier today, homers into the opposite field, and we're tied at 1. Happ with his 28th home run of the year, and so Chicago knots this one up. Close game through 2 as both teams score, and we move into the third. Speaking of Woody Landry, he's up with a runner on and 2 away, and he goes down swinging and missing at the low slider. Shouldn't have swung at that one. Bobby Miller's looked quite good through 3. A lot of strikeouts. Bottom 3, Luis Arraez, hit machine. That one goes off the wall and left. Overall, a lucky bounce for the Marlins because if that ball keeps rolling to the corner, it's a double. But since it deflects off the wall, it's a single. And because of that, the Marlins can turn 2. Pete Crow Armstrong grounds into a double play. If Arraez hit a double, he would have made it to 3rd. Let's go bottom 4, Harold Ramirez. That one bounces over the fence. Had it not, it would have only been a single. Instead, it's a double, and that will directly change the result of the inning because it looks like the runner on 3rd should score off the sac fly. James Wood with a bad throw to the plate. Melendez misplays it. Melendez and Wood are great defenders. It's pretty abnormal for both of them, but yeah, that was ugly. Probably would have been safe anyway, but still, not a good throw. As we move into the 5th, Vidal Brujan gets plunked off the kneecap after driving in a run in his last at-bat. Charge the mound. Charge the mound. Melendez puts it on the ground, and that will be a double play. I think charging the mound literally would have been legitimately more productive than that at-bat. Khalil Watson now. Whoa, that ball goes behind him. What's going on, Bobby? It's twice in this inning. Khalil Watson better make him pay. Well, he's going to make him pay. Rips it into the gap in right center. I wish it went over the fence. That would have been sick. Instead, it goes off the wall for a double. And the Marlins get a runner in scoring position. One of their faster runners, no less, with 2 away. And the leadoff man, Jazz Chisholm, who's hitting at the top of the order because I feel like Brian De La Cruz is too good to be there. What are we doing, Bobby? Throwing at his head now? That's 3 times this inning. My God. Jazz Chisholm will not get revenge. Instead, he swings at a splitter in the dirt. And Miller, who threw at Marlins batters 3 times, gets out of the inning scot-free. Bottom 5, Caden Wallace strikes out on the curveball. Tyrell Berry having a pretty strong day as he looks to strike out Pete Crow Armstrong, and he does. 5 innings of 2-run ball for Berry. I imagine his day is not done as we move into the 6th. Bobby Miller still in the game for the Cubbies against Woody Landry. Thinks he drew a walk. Honestly, I thought he did too. Umpire says otherwise. That's K number 8 on the day for Miller. Looking for another one against Isaac Stu, and he's not going to get it. This ball goes into the gap for Stu. The splitter was inside and low. He didn't hit it super hard, but it goes for a double. I mean, hey, that'll work. Runner in scoring position, and the Cubs are not going to trust their ace to get what would be one of the biggest outs of the game. Instead, they're going to go to the bullpen with Luke Purcell coming in, a lefty. I think they wanted to get the lefty-on-lefty matchup with Jesus Sanchez. And part of the reason why he's slowing down here in the second half of the year has been inconsistencies with lefties as he checks his swing. He did not go around. I don't care what the umpire said. That call's crazy. Bottom 6, Ian Happ homered earlier looking for another hit, and he'll get it as that one gets by Brian De La Cruz. Rolling to the corner in right field. He's got to be thinking 3. He will go for a triple, and he is safe. Ian Happ with a homer and a triple today, his 3rd of the year. That'll bring up Harold Ramirez, and he will strike out looking on the fastball. Ramirez was 2 for 2 prior, but Berry gets out of the inning, and it's still 2-1 as we move into the 7th. MJ Melendez with 2 away, pops it into left. Good inning for Purcell. Overall, really not a great day for the Marlins offense, but luckily the pitching's been really strong as well. Tyrell Berry's day is done. He'll be replaced by the lefty Taylor Hearn, who's been a good addition coming over from the Rangers in the offseason, 2.86 ERA. He'll start with fellow lefty Owen Cassie, who crushes it into right center. That one is gone, and the Cubs add to their lead. It's 3-1. Cassie drove in a run in his last at-bat off of the sac fly, and now he goes deep. His 15th homer of the year, 431 feet. And so Chicago leads 3-1. That'll bring up the switch-hitting shortstop, Edwin Arroyo, who hits this one into right. That one gets by De La Cruz, and Arroyo, who's pretty fast, will stay at second with a double. Quick start for the Cubs. A homer and a double. That'll bring up Caden Wallace up the middle with a single. Arroyo will look to score. Throw from Wood is again offline as it's 4-1. Right when Tyrell Berry's taken out of the game, things fall apart. Not ideal. Hearn faces 3 batters. They all get hits, and he gets yanked for Tobias Starr. His 3rd big league appearance of the year, his first since like April. Runner going for second. Luis Ariz hits this one into the left field corner. The runner who was stealing is going to score with no problem. It's an RBI double for the former Marlin, Luis Ariz, his 2nd hit of the game, and it's 5-1. Pete Crow Armstrong now into right. Going to be a tough play. Boink! Off of De La Cruz's glove. You've got to be kidding me. That's going to be a triple for PCA. And it's now 6-1 with Ariz sliding safely. The best part about this is that there's still nobody out. George Watkins, blooper into right. You've got to be kidding me. He singles. It's 7-1. The Cubs start the bottom of the 7th inning with 6 consecutive hits as the Marlins go to their 3rd different pitcher of the inning. There's still nobody out. Joe Shearer will come in to replace Tobias Starr. He'll face off against Oscar Colas. He rips this one into the gap. Thankfully, there's 1 out now. But does that really matter? There's 2 runners in scoring position and a golden opportunity for the Cubs to add to their lead even more. Harold Ramirez up the middle. Watson deflects it. Everybody's safe, though. Run scores. And it is now 8-1 in favor of the Cubs. Owen Cassie, who started the inning with the homer, puts it on the ground. 5-4. No! He's safe at first, and it's 9-1. They had another run. First and second now. Wallace strikes out. Finally, the inning is over. The Cubs score 7. I think they got 9 hits in that inning. That's absurd. Here in the 8th, they're going to add another. Luis Arraez with his 3rd hit of the game as he goes deep. Only his 7th home run of the year. He did miss some time with injury, but he's also not quite hitting for the same power that he did towards the end of his tenure here. The score is now 10-1, 2 away in the 9th with Brock Burke now in the game for Chicago. Vidal Brujan pops it up to second. It's caught by Arraez, and the nightmare is over. The Cubs win it 10-1. This is a really close, competitive pitching duel. Tyrell Berry pitched a great game, and his performance looks better just because of the fact that the bullpen imploded the second he was taken out of the game. Taylor Hearn was a disaster. Tobias Starr was a disaster. And even Joe Shearer wasn't that great either. The offense as well, not particularly good. 1 run, 6 hits, not a great day for them. As for the Cubs, everybody got hits, considering they hit around and then some in the 7th inning, scoring a whopping 7 runs. Now, we're still 16 and a half games ahead of the Mets, so we're fine. We're going to simulate these next 2 series against the Rockies and the Nationals. And again, we don't play anybody else who's over 500 the rest of the year, unless the Brewers get up to over 500. We ended up going 6-0 over our next 6, sweeping the Rockies and the Nationals, allowing just 5 runs across the 6 games. De La Cruz is still second for MVP. Cabrera still leads for Cy Young. Robbie Jones is in second. And Corbin Burns, who's 19-0, is in third. I used to think that record really mattered, considering Edward Cabrera was below Logan Webb for a lot of last year. We've officially clinched the division, by the way. That shouldn't really be a surprise. We're going to still simulate our next 2 series slowly as we go for the 1 seed. And we're going to play against Max Meyer in this series against Milwaukee. He's only pitched in 2 games. He's been hurt all year. And he's finally healthy, gets to play us, and we ended up winning in his start 9-1. We had this game, though, that we lost 8-10, allowing 4 in the 9th, a rare Emmanuel Clase disaster class. We still should comfortably get the number 1 seed here over these next couple of games, hopefully within this next week's stretch against the Phillies and Braves, as the minor league seasons are over, and we end up sweeping the Phillies, and we take care of business against Atlanta, clinching the number 1 seed, and we also win 100-plus games for the first time in this series, and I'm pretty sure the first time in team history, I would think. Edward Cabrera clinched the Cy Young in that game against the Phillies, and then in the next game, we scored 10. So with that, we have 6 games to go, and we're going to treat these 6 games normally. We're going to have a bye, and I think the bye kind of threw us off our rhythm last year, which is why we lost against the Mets. I don't want us to have 2 weeks off, so we're going to play these games like normal, and we ended up winning out, finishing with a record of 108-54. We certainly took them seriously, all right, finishing with by far the best record in the National League and Major League Baseball, period. The Cubs win 96. The Giants win 6 in a row to win the division, taking 95 games. The Dodgers, Pirates, and Mets are the wild cards as the Red Sox, Twins, and Astros win their divisions in the AL. And the Rangers, Orioles, and Mariners are wild cards. Let's take a look at the numbers. Brian De La Cruz, whoa! 48 home runs, 117 RBIs, hitting .311. Where did this come from? Half of 48 is 24. He's hit 24 home runs or more once in his career. Once! He's been a fine power hitter, but not somebody who I thought would ever sniff 48 home runs. And to be completely honest, he was the best offensive player in baseball this year. He led the National League in batting average, on base, slugging, OPS, and home runs. He was 3rd in RBIs. If he had more RBIs, he would have not just won the Triple Crown, but he would have had the best slash line in the league. And the only reason why he didn't win this Triple Crown is because he was the leadoff hitter the last 2 months of the year. Wow, what a year for De La Cruz. Woody Landry with another 40 home run season. Jesus Sanchez played obviously really well, career high in homers. Jazz Chisholm was good. Isaac Stu was good. James Wood was great this year, but he wasn't very good after he signed the contract extension. Edward Cabrera, another great season. Not as good as he's been, but that doesn't really say much considering he's looked like prime DeGrom over the last 3 years. Robbie Jones with an incredible end of the year. The bullpen was great as well. Let's take a look at the awards. There's some interesting stuff in here. In particular, Brian De La Cruz won the MVP. Who would have seen this coming going into the year? Not me! Going into the year, he was a 33-year-old one-time All-Star who had been a good player for us throughout the entire duration of the series. But I never thought he would win the MVP. He got injured the second game of last year, and after he came back, he looked like an MVP-level player. It was unfortunate because he didn't get the whole year to show that, and I didn't think he would get another opportunity like this, but clearly not. He played like an MVP the whole year, and he ends up winning it right at the end. I checked before the last game of the year, and he was not the favorite. It was Brian Reynolds. I think he hit a home run the last game of the year, and that ultimately surpassed Reynolds to win the most valuable player in the National League. Edward Cabrera wins Cy Young number 4, tying Roger Clemens for the most in a row ever. Robbie Jones in second. Brian De La Cruz wins the batting title. Emmanuel Clase second for reliever of the year, only behind Adonis Stakodopoulos, funny enough. Geronimo Gonzalez wins the rookie of the year. Brian De La Cruz wins the Hank Aaron. MJ Melendez finishes third for Gold Glove and Silver Slugger. And obviously Woody Landry and Brian De La Cruz both win Silver Sluggers as well. The one more thing with De La Cruz, who, again, hit 48 home runs, the most of all players in Major League Baseball. He only played 135 games this year. He didn't have any injuries, but it's not like he was a full everyday player. Had he played 160 games, he would have been on pace to hit like 55 home runs, which, again, for a guy like him, who's hit above 23 home runs once, that's wild. That's going to wrap up the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Next time around, we'll kick off the playoffs. NLDS will be against the Dodgers or the Pirates, which should be a lot of fun. Make sure to stay tuned for that. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Peace out.